Ginger McKay and Pete Musci's family history, our roots. Many of the pictures and videos presented here were done in April 2008, 7 years ago. Many of the homes are 50 to 100 years old, in disrepair or already torn down. The homes our parents built are still standing strong. This initial section is Ginger McKay's family homes.
Hey, this is the house that my dad built by hand himself, and I was born here, and my sister and my brother, we didn't go to the hospital to be born. We were born in the home, and the doctor came to the house with my aunts were there to help my mother when I was born. And this is the house out by my grandmother's farm. The end.
In Glencoe?
In Glencoe, Ohio.
This is the second house Ginger lived in. It is in Neffs, Ohio. I remember digging a sewer line alongside this house with Ginger's brother. Note the garage in the back. Her father built the garage. Also notice the alley in the back. This is where Ginger used to back her dad's car up and down this alley to learn how to drive a standard shift car. This is Ginger in her dad's car practicing. This is Ginger's parents. Ginger didn't live here, but they moved from Neffs into this house and then out to Arizona. This is in St. Clairsville. This is Ginger's parents in the Arizona house with our kids. Hey, here we are up here visiting great-grandparents, Pete and Mildred McKay.
Cool. So who's this up here? Who's in here? Mima's what?
Okay, and we're here on our Ginger and I's 43rd wedding anniversary. And she still looks good, but that's why I'm behind this camera. Okay.
And Nikki and I are.
This section is Pete Musci's family homes that have not been torn down. This is my grandmother's house. My parents were married and lived in the second floor of this house, and that's where I was born. I used to go up and down the steps and all that kind of stuff. She used to have flowers out here in the front steps, and on the left side of the house a whole bank of flowers. In the back of this house, my grandfather had tomatoes, a wine where he made wine, and then next to him, and then right here was a garage where my grandmother
put her car, and right next to here was where my dad lived, and it was flat up here. My dad, first thing he built in the back there when he was a young kid was he built himself a place up on the hillside, a room that he could lift weights. He became a Golden Gloves boxer, and then he had to go to work in a coal mine. Over here, I don't know if you can see it, I'll take pictures of it later, but this is an asphalt street now. It used to be bricks, sort of like Belgian block, and as soon as school was out we would be barefooted for the whole summer, running around and playing football on this street. Most of the houses had these little things underneath the steps where the natural gas meters were and the water meters were. I remember as a little kid we used to, 2 or 3 of us used to get in there and just play. That was our house underneath there. We never lived in this house, but we always came up here and played right inside there.
Get over here.
Talking to the lady that owns it now, and you can see the garage in the back and the exposed basement in the back. This is the one where my dad shoveled out the basement himself.
He did, by hand.
By hand. And I remember a young kid helping him dig this out and digging all the ditches. When we put hardwood floors down, I was the one that was drilling. In those days you had to pre-drill the hardwood floors before you could put the nails in it.
Oh my, because the wood was so hard.
Yeah, and I was pretty young to be operating a drill. And
yeah.
I had to make sure I had the angle right.
This is the front of the first house my dad built. 60 years later, still in great shape.
I don't know which one it is, but it's either this one or the one next to it that my Uncle Joe Mills built. He built the majority of it. My dad just came up and helped with the complicated areas like some of the roof angles and the stairways. I was there helping him. This is the Jefferson Street house. We lived on the right-hand side, rented out the left-hand side. This is the one that had the pigeon problem. You can see up there what he did was he put electrical wires up in the eaves and put hot juice in there. Pigeons would come in, roost, get electrocuted, fly off, and then land on Route 7. I used to be on the steps. This used to be Route 7, cars and trucks going by, and I used to go from my porch here, and I'd stand up on that corner. You see that car? I'd see how far I could let that car get close to me, and I'd race up this sidewalk and beat him to the front of my house, and then stop and walk back up and race the next group of cars. In the back of this house, it had a big double garage that I had a car took apart, had a punching bag, minute bag, weights, had a big bar that I used to take somersaults over. So we lived here twice. Lived here after Shady Side, went up on the Bellevue Heights, built the first house up there, sold it, came back down, lived here again, and went up and built my uncle's house, and then built the final house in Bellevue Heights. This is the first house my dad built up on Bellevue Heights. And then after we built it, lived in it a little while, and then went back down to Jefferson Street. I remember the brick. We did have somebody lay the brick, but I was the one that mixed the mortar for the guy. My grandfather cut the brick for the guy, and my grandfather was telling me in Italian what to do, and I couldn't understand him half the time, so he was throwing bricks at me. This house is a very nice house, Anderson windows, finished basement, etc. It was one of the first houses built up here. The owner of this Bellevue Heights lived in that house there. This is a story where they hadn't been married yet, and my dad told my mother that one of these days after they were married he was going to build her a house up here. She thought he was crazy. He ended up building this one, another one that they finally lived in, and then one for her brother. This is a house in Shady Side that my dad built. I was older and did most of the stuff. I could do everything by this time. He bid in on 2 houses up in northern Bel Air on Route 7 when the highway was going through, and we got an older house and a new house. And the newer house we took apart and used all the materials to build this. Initially in the back this had a garage and a basement, but after a while we put a double garage in the back. It's a pretty nice house. I think he rented it for $85 a month. Eventually at the end, before he sold it, it was maybe $180 a month. This is a house that my dad owned, rented, 2 sides. See how high the peak of the roof is? I remember the time he had this aluminum ladder with 3 extensions all the way to the peak of this roof, and I was down the bottom holding the ladder, and he was up on the roof, working on the roof, and he wanted me to bring a tool up. Man, you talk about a scary situation. This is the second house that was built up on Bellevue Heights. This was for my mother's brother, Emilio Bonfini, the attorney. Again, we built the whole thing, except we did hire a guy to plaster the thing and a guy to lay the brick. And at this time, I'm full-fledged electrician, plumber, carpenter, everything. It's got a single-car garage. One of the things we did here was insulated this thing for golden electric insulation and put electric wires in the ceiling to heat the thing, and it turned out to be very expensive, so we had to replace it and put in a furnace. We were thinking that initially with my dad's second house, but we insulated it for electricity, put in a big gas forced air conditioner, and the gas bills were $20 a month. This is my parents' pride and joy here. It's their final house up here. Nothing but the best and throughout the whole house. This is the final house he built for himself. He was involved in building a couple for Ginger and I. You see his shed that he put in the back there. And Bellevue Heights, final house. This is the Bel Air Big Red football stadium. Football was a big thing in this town. Also track. They had a straightaway 220 there. And when you started off as 7th and 8th graders, you played down on the city dump. And then you moved up as freshmen up here onto this field. We don't know where everything is, but this is a Bel Air Park. Our wedding picture was taken in front of a monument right here. This monument has been moved or replaced. Over on that corner was where we had the reception, and that building has been destroyed, removed. You can see that Bel Air has at least kept the Bel Air Park without buildings and anything else on it. A lot of monuments in it. And clear in the background is the Bel Air High School. This is my dad's mother and father and brother. They're up at the same cemetery where my parents are in a mausoleum. Second set of steps going toward the mausoleum, and that's where they are. Here is John and Nikki and Gianna here, and we're looking right now at one of the first mausoleums ever in this area. was my grandmother wanted a mausoleum, and grandfather died first, and then she followed suit. This is my mother, Josephine Musci on the left, and Jim Musci on the right. And there's Thorpe, and John, and Nikki. Ginger is here. We're here on our anniversary, Ginger and I's 43rd anniversary.
That's my email. There.